the software side, the human interaction, the community aspect of it. So we're going to be covering both of these. And we have a really fantastic range of speakers who are going to take us through a series of key perspectives. First of all, we have Miimu Airaksinen, and I asked you before how to pronounce your name, so my apologies. And it's great to see you, and I'm particularly pleased because in The Guardian last week in the UK, there was an article from the woman who's the CEO of the Royal College of Engineers in the UK. And the UK has the lowest rate of female engineers in Europe. And this conversation was about why is this and what do we need to do about it? So clearly Finland, along with lots of other places, are doing the right thing. So it's fantastic to have you here, and I'll ask you to present shortly. Then we have resplendent in a summer suit of white, Raul Järg, who is the head of the Estonian Centre of Architecture. Raul said to me earlier on, architects normally wear black, which is true. So this is a summer version. So Raul, great to see you, and thanks for joining us. And we look very much to hear your observations on how the future looks from a design and architecture perspective. Then we have Niki Gaitani, now based in Norway, working on this whole question of zero emissions and zero emission neighbourhoods. Again, this whole question of how do we do it, who pays for it, how does it work? So again, we look forward to hearing your thoughts on that, Niki. And then we have Anders Lago, former mayor of Södertälje, as we were talking about earlier on this morning, and now chair of the HSB Cooperative Housing Association in Sweden. Again, thinking about this whole question about sustainability. Homes for the future. We saw the already iconic image of these 3D printed houses from Eindhoven, which have been all around the globe this week. So, what does sustainable, affordable homes look like in this digital world? And then finally, from here in Estonia, from the Tartu Regional Energy Organization, we have Kalle Virkus, who has got a fantastic title for your presentation, from Kruszewska to Smartowska, which is wonderful. And in case I forget, in this fabulous setting outside this building, there is some, how could you call it? Some post-communist or communist period statues, including a statue of Stalin, which you don't really see so often these days. So when you have time, go and have a little wander around, have a look at some of the amazing iconography that's on this fabulous location. So that's our super panel. Let's dive into things. Miimu, I'll ask you first of all to take the floor, please. We look forward to hearing what you have to say, and thanks so much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation. It's really a pleasure to be here. And it has been really kind of like wonderful morning already, so I have learned a lot about the previous panel, so it was really interesting. My few words about how we can measure the digitalized city, or can we measure that? As we all know, so cities and urbanization is a big trend. I mean, we know that everyone, kind of like most of the people are living in cities, and GDP is created in cities. But most importantly, innovations are created and originated in cities because people are interacting in cities. So that's why cities are so vital and so crucial in our development. And that's why we need to think so much about how we are developing and transforming cities in the future. Well, I mean, as we have heard already this morning, so smart city is not a value or target as such, because I mean, cities should be for good living, for good working, for economic growth and resource efficiency. And that sense also smart city is not an administrative region, but more kind of like boundary for some functional unit. Then what makes actually cities in that sense smart is that we are all the time connecting more and more devices in the internet. Every second, nearly 130 devices are connected to the internet. And this is, of course, affecting to the cities as well. Because city has many systems, subsystems, and sub-subsystems. And all those systems are more and more interlinked and interconnected. And this means actually that we don't have any more kind of like supply and demand, but much more complicated systems and much more kind of like objectives which we need to fulfill. And those are not kind of like always targeted on the same direction. So that's also like complicated decision systems what we need to have in the cities. And of course that leads to a system in the cities that the leadership in the cities cannot be the same as it was 100 years ago. So this is really challenging for in not only in the technical means but also in the organizational means. Then, I mean, how we can then measure such a complex system like a city? Can we actually measure that? Well, I mean, we have already many those frameworks about how to measure the sustainable city or the smart city, and we have many frameworks. And as you can see here there is one example of combining different indicators and seeing that what is the difference. And usually the sustainable indicators tend to, of course, to emphasize the sustainability, whereas the smart indicators tend to emphasize a bit more about the social issues in the cities. There was a couple of years ago a really nice project called City Keys, which is a European funded project, which was actually thinking that what are the crucial indicators and how we could measure that the city is functioning. And as we can see here, I mean, you can read more on the websites, but those indicators, they are based on the people, planet, prosperity, which are the classical sustainability 3 pillars. But what was new in this indicator set, and which I especially liked, was that they included governance indicators, so how to engage all the actors in the cities, how to engage the citizens to have kind of like the really action of all the stakeholders and multi-level governance and all those aspects. But also that how we scale and how we replicate the good solutions. Because we have so many good pilots or so many good areas, but we cannot replicate, or we haven't succeeded to replicate those. And they also seek those kind of like indicators that what are the success factors, what you should actually focus in the process-wise and in the target-wise. I mean, we are talking quite a lot about, when we are talking about smart cities, so we are talking about Internet of Things. And we shouldn't actually talk about that much about Internet of Things, but really things of meanings, kind of like really something. I mean, we have so much data. Just a typical new building have thousands or 100,000 measurement points, data points. So that means that actually human cannot read anymore that. I mean, we need machine-to-machine learning and all those algorithms to really make some sense of the data. And that is actually what makes cities kind of like smart, that if they can make the data available to kind of like get the picture and get the understanding of what this data actually means and how the data is guiding us towards a better system and kind of like better living in the cities, better well-being. Well, I mean, those technical devices, I mean, they do have, even though the citizens are in the center, but I mean, they do have a kind of like good things as well. I mean, we are talking quite a lot about adaptive or context-aware systems. Basically, that the spaces have some indicators and they understand who is coming inside the building, and they can turn, for example, the air conditioning or heating or cooling on the way the people preferred, or lighting system or music or something else. And this is kind of like not only for the comfort, but it's also saving the energy, and especially in these times when we have a lot of renewables and peak energy is an issue. So that's also kind of like one thing which might solve or at least improve the peak energy issues. Well, I mean, then always when we are talking about sensors or connectivity, so we need to talk about cybersecurity. I mean, that is, I mean, everyone is using internet. Already in Europe, 300 million people are using daily internet. And cybersecurity business is actually the fastest growing business in the world. So this shows really the importance. But at the same time, I mean, we shouldn't be really too skeptical, because I mean, it's always that I mean, there always have been bad guys and good guys. So we need to also like to build on the trust. So this also have the social aspects, that we need to be transparent in the data, what we are doing with the data. And of course, we need to engage. Transparency is also like co-creation with all the stakeholders. This is extremely important. And also co-creating services, because smart cities is actually about the services. It's like living as a service. It's not anymore kind of like heating as a service, but really like full-time services. And also that the services are changing over the time. So it's not kind of like one service which we are designing now and then it's for 10 years, but services are changing all the time. And also that we are actually creating the cities for future generations, for those people who are not even yet born. And that's kind of like how we create cities for those people. And that leads us to the conclusions that, I mean, we are always kind of like over-predicting the future, but quite often also under-imagining it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nina. Thank you for... is mic on? Can I have the mic on, please? Can you hear me, guys? Yeah, you can hear me now. Okay. Thanks, Miimu. Thanks for sticking to time, and also thanks for that whirlwind tour, and lots of things in my head. So one of them is about this measuring performance. Another one is about this whole question about, I guess, changing behaviors and who needs. Sorry, it's my timer. Who needs to be changing behaviors? So again, we'll pick up on some of those things. Let's keep going. Let's invite Raul to join us. Again, design perspective. So what are the architects making of this, and what are the architects talking about when they're talking about this, the whole digital dimension to the world we're in there now? Yeah, nice to see you. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for having me here. So, quick look from perspective of architect. I'm an architect, and as well the organizer of the Tallinn Architecture Biennale, which is one of the biggest architecture festival in the region. Last one was about the biotechnology and architecture, and one before was about self-driving cars and architecture. I tell you, next will be about beauty. At first, I will tell you why. First I should inform you. You are the part of the experiment. We all are, like guinea pigs. Let me explain. Architecture is a discipline that creates the future. In direct sense, all the buildings that we see and use have been first in somebody's mind, but not only in architecture's mind, but all of ours mind. Most of the cityscape as well. We create the environment, but honestly, we don't know. We don't know what are the outcome will be in the social, economical and sustainable sense. Remarkable example of this is the shift to the modernism in the architecture and city planning in the last century. With less than 50 years, the success story, utopia, turned to failure. The proposed new way of living didn't work as it was expected. Feedback from the users and from the society came soon and was painful. But now, half of us, 100 years later, half of us living in this utopia. We tend to believe that we live in the extraordinary time. All the new technologies rapidly expands into our life and changes it to something new. But my question is, it's really so? Most of the new technology are just the quality improvements. If you could put yourself into your grandparents' and grandparents' position around 100 years ago, and a bit more, you could see mankind first got wings to fly as never before in the history, got voice to speak directly beyond one's voice, found invisible power called electricity, etc. and etc. Back then, it was the era for the big changes. and architects and city planning kept the base and proposed new way of living. Now we call it experiment of modern architecture. Some call it failure, I rather lesson to learn. There is slides as well. Oh yeah, of course. I forget it was. 1898, 100 and bit more years ago, 120 years ago, first international city planning conference took place in New York. And the main subject was, you know what? What was the main subject? The main subject was cities are drowning into the horse manure. So, back then they didn't find solution. They left the conference and didn't find any solutions. And then the car came onto and changed the picture. Technology helped us out, but in the longer run created new problems as well. Now, 2018, we have inherent belief that technology will always help us out. Yes and no. We have a bunch of positive examples, of course, but as well critical ones. For example, one example from New York, Adam probably left, yes, I could then ask from him, but it is well accepted belief that self-driving cars and car sharing will reduce traffic intensity on the streets. But New York vehicle traffic has significantly increased in the few past years. And some studies show that it is a car sharing services that has added additional cars on the street. And at the same time, public transportation usage has declined as people are shifting into the more convenient services. Another example from the field of street lighting. We achieved with the energy efficient LED lighting reduce of energy consumption, yes. But on the same time, cheap and light opportunities increased the amount of lighting and light pollution. So then I would say that in some fields we didn't achieve what we expected. And for me as an architect, the most vulnerable example, near zero energy buildings. We are about to start an enormous experiment in the terms of territory and impact. But let me remind you that you are the part of the experiment and we don't know what the consequences in social, economical and sustainable sense really will be. And in this case, I should say that we don't know even impact to the architecture and design and living environment. So number-based design can harm many other important aspects of the architecture and livability and beauty of the environment. So I don't know how guys are you prepared for this, but honestly, we are not. And it's not about just the cities. It's and how smart the cities really are and how the sustainability is achievable. Today we look at the energy consumption on the small scale and we are saying that using solar panels is sustainable. But yes, but if we look at the cumulative energy consumption together with production and environmental impact, then the picture is a bit different and I'm not sure that we haven't achieved much. And but is it sustainable city achievable at all? Maybe it's just mirage and goal to not to achieve at all. If you look at the big picture again, you see that energy comes from outside the cities. You see that food comes from outside. It comes from rural areas. Even the human capital, the city inhabitation growth come from outside. And we manifest glorify cities, yes. But, sorry. But the most of the wealth created there, yes, of course. but the resources come from outside. That's why we have to look to the whole picture. We have to talk about cities and rural environment as well. Lesson to learn. The new way of experiment called cities, there is no way, definitely. But we have to keep experimenting. But the only way to alleviate the consequences to experiment on the reasonable scale and to give and receive continuous feedback. It's very important how things are working on. But and by default, technology itself is not smart, right? And the smart city is not just pile of sophisticated, it's been talked here already. The smart technology, the smarter the technology, the smarter the implementers and users have to be. Cities don't have to be smart, we have to be. There is no universal solution on this, on one size fits for all. And even once in something seems to work somewhere, in the short run, we can't be sure of the longer consequences because we can't see beyond the horizon. We have to keep on our eyes on the horizon and learn from what the experiments have taught so far us. And definitely we have to pay more attention to our everyday environment and have to invest much more to look at the bigger picture and invest more to research and studies about the income. Then who knows, maybe through all those experiments and lessons to learn waiting for us, better future, and for cities as well after all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thanks, Raul. Nice one, guys. Thanks, Raul. And you talked, and again, Adam talked about experimentation this morning, the sense that we're all kind of in the Truman Show, that we're all in this big laboratory, that we are the guinea pigs. So again, we're all very conscious of that sort of, this whole data sharing conversation and everything we track and the algorithms and behaviors. There's also this sort of notion, I mean, interestingly, you talked about this unfulfilled promise. You know, the promise of technology, these bright, shiny things which will solve everything. And you went right back to 100 years ago, and Adam also talked about this notion of moonshots and the huge expectations, and part of that's about selling. Part of that, frankly, is people trying to sell us stuff, but it's also about how we really get smart. So again, we might come back to that. And you also talked about the notion of zero emissions, and that sort of, that kind of, that holy grail sort of thing that we're all trying to get to. And that's, I think, where you come in, Niki, and you've made an amazing journey from Athens to Trondheim. We had a quick chat earlier, and we were talking about you're in a city now where there are many young people, where, as we've already heard, and it's interesting hearing our Nordic presenters when they make this connection between urban and rural, between the importance of nature, and even though we're talking about tech, we're talking about being human, and being human is part of being connected with nature and all that's around us. So Niki, we look forward to hearing what you have to say. Tell us about this concept of zero and how you're involved in this work. Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for inviting me to this conference, and also for giving me this opportunity to add a piece to this puzzle of a digitized city. You've been talking about experiments. I'm a physicist, so building physicist, so experiments is the knowledge, is the basis for knowledge, to gain knowledge. And at the research center of Zero Emission Neighbourhoods, which is located at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology in Trondheim, we are working on this vision to low carbon society. Sorry, I have a problem here. Yes. But I cannot see the slide. Okay. So the journey has started in 2009 with the launching of ZEB, which is the Center of Zero Emission Buildings. And we understood we understood that we can not only focus on just the buildings, and this is only give us suboptimal solutions when aiming for a zero emission society. So the Zen Center, which is focused on neighborhood scales, aims to enable this transition to a low-carbon society by developing the sustainable neighborhoods with zero greenhouse emissions in order to speed up the decarbonization of the building stock, to create positive synergies among the building stock, the energy, the mobility systems, and the citizens, and to ensure optimal energy use in good places for living and working. The research scope of the research center, in order to address the overall goal, is a multidisciplinary research, and it's needed in order to advance the state of the arts in key areas like the framework, how we design and plan the Zen neighborhoods, zero-emission neighborhoods, the policy measures, innovation, business models, responsive energy-efficient buildings, energy-flexible neighborhoods, optimization with the local energy system and the grid, and of course, the most important thing, to implement all these solutions and the knowledge-based approach and the concepts in pilot projects, real projects implemented in Norway as a living lab or innovation hub for inspiration and implementation. Therefore, the Research Center, together with its partners, 32 in total, has set to create a zero-emission neighborhood. But what is a zero-emission neighborhood? Generally, the neighborhood is a group of interconnected buildings, associated infrastructure located with a geographical area. But what is zero? Zero aims to reduce direct and indirect gas emissions towards zero, and this is over an analysis period, and this is under discussion. And in line also with an ambition level, which is set up by the users or the policymakers. And then we should take into account the life cycle of the modules, the building, the infrastructure, all the elements of the neighborhood. How to? We need to plan, design, operate the infrastructures towards zero life cycle emissions. We need energy efficient, empowered by a high share of renewable energy sources. We need to manage energy flows and exchanges in a flexible way, promote sustainable transport, economic sustainability by minimizing the costs, plan local amenities and provide special qualities in order to engage the citizens to stimulate the sustainable behavior. Also, we need innovative processes of cooperation. To realize and test all these solutions, the Zen Center has 8 pilot projects around Norway, which will act as innovation hub and lighthouse projects. These pilots altogether encompass an area of more than 1 million square meters and involve more than 30,000 inhabitants. I'm going to give you a short overview of these pilot projects in Norway, starting from Trondheim, where the Norwegian University of Science and Technology is located. The project is about the knowledge axis and encompasses a special demand of 136 square meters. And it's about the relocation of the social sciences campus with main goal to expand the vision of zero energy building to a campus perspective. And this will be completed in 2015 with 17,000 additional users, mainly students and employees at the campus. Another project is in Oslo, a Furoset. It's an existing semi-urban area, which was built in the 70s, but now is in renewal process. And with investment in social infrastructure, creation of mobility center and attractive urban spaces, development of micro-energy system, climate-friendly construction of buildings. Bodø is a former civil and military airport, is planned to be replaced by a smaller civil airport, and the remain surface will be used to expand the existing city center. The planned multifunctional urban area will be developed within the next 60 years. So we have different time frames and different ambition level. Here you see another city, another example. The most important aspect here is it is a small town which is there to invest in a zero-emission vision. Quickly, another pilot that we are working on is the campus of Zen. Here the focus is the interplay between electricity and heat, energy storage, and application of living lab methodologies. And last one, the goal of Steiner community, a project to develop a kindergarten, a residential area, and a good environment for the users. This is a project with an early and open dialogue with potential project partners and users. There are many challenges, as you can see, different projects, different scales, and we have identified all these challenges, and we understand the continuation given the long time frames. Sorry, okay. The continuation and the cooperation is really needed. Also, the flexibility to the future developments in technology, legal frameworks, and citizens' needs. All these challenges include different ambitions, different solutions, different tools. We need the knowledge, technical and legal standardization, and of course, regulatory barriers. But there are also many possibilities. I'm sorry. We missed the possibilities? Yes. Here they are. And there are many possibilities actually in optimizing the energy use and the renewable energy production at the neighborhood scale. Focusing on neighborhoods makes sure that emissions related to the infrastructures are considered. Installation of new renewable technologies will be easier. And the most important thing is that the neighborhood scale is very efficient in climate resilient and zero emission design intervention. We take into account the building's layout, the natural and technical elements of a complete setting. Thank you so much. You can find more information about our research scope and results in this link. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Niki. Thank you. Brilliant. I should say, I didn't mention earlier, all of the presentations will be available on the Housing Europe website within the next couple of weeks at the latest. So, because there's a lot of things for us to take in here, so all of those PowerPoints and PDFs will be available for you to share. Let's push the pause button for a minute and maybe ask you guys to give us a bit of feedback. Let's get out our smartphones. Let's remind ourselves about the Mentimeter super duper gizmo we have. There's the code if you didn't check it in earlier on. And I mean, already we're talking about kind of cross-sectoral working. We're talking about ways of working which in a sense transcends the traditional policy silos. So we're talking about working across different sort of policy areas, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that shortly. So this question here is just about what you think about your own organization in terms of this connecting up some of these I guess thematic areas: transport, health, civic engagement. How good are we at working across these different sort of boundaries? As you know, because clearly that's the way we have to work. Collaboration is clearly of the moment. So let's have a look and see what you think. Yeah, almost half of you think your organization is making efforts. We could discuss what making efforts means, of course, but you're trying hard to move on this. More than a third of you, maybe 50, you're not so sure, you're not convinced. And 1 in 5 roughly is saying no, they're not. So we're still in a transitional place. We're still trying to work our way through some of this about how we work most effectively. And then something that Miimu said was how we get better at sharing and scaling. So where are the sources of inspiration? How do we learn some of these lessons? We've just heard some of them from each of our speakers, actually. So the next question, if we can jump ahead to the next one, is about where are those places that might give us an inspirational reference point. And this is a group of cities which are all, I guess, in the vanguard. They're places that are routinely mentioned when we talk about cities which are on the leading edge. So which of these do you think can be a reference point or a source of inspiration, a place where we can learn and help others learn from the experience? And there might be others, so the others button might be the top one. We have lots of Nordics in the room, so Stockholm's looking very healthy at the moment. I'm just watching that, and no one on the panel. Miimu, you're not pushing any buttons there, so yeah. Amsterdam as well, yeah, okay. I guess Seoul, which I spent some time working in Seoul twice in the last 18 months. It's a bit like being on the set of Blade Runner. It's an interesting and kind of scary place, but a place where they have a mayor who is transforming the notion of super cross-sectoral collaboration, he calls it, and he's very effectively using tools to create this, really different kind of dialogue with citizens. And this is in a city where many of his predecessors are now in jail, huge issues around corruption. So he was a citizen, he stood as an independent, the citizen for mayor. So, again, using tech as a way of creating that trusted connection with citizens. But anyway, our panel, from you guys, you think Stockholm a place for inspiration, Amsterdam. We all collectively need to think how we use these examples more effectively, how we share them, how we make them real, how we bring them alive for people. So again, we might talk a bit about that later. So let's keep going on our panel. Anders Sudotaje is not so far from Stockholm. So I guess you're riding that wave too. So again, in terms of our conversation about connections and joining the dots, just share with us, if you will, your thoughts around this sustainability conversation. And the floor is yours. We look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you very much. For me and HSB, digitalization is a tool. It's a way to conduct better business and doing the business more effectively, to communicate with members and customers, and to make our members to have dialogue with each other. I think in some way I can say that HSB had worked with digitalization for 30 years, but we didn't then call it digitalization. I will give you a quick overview what we and other in the housing sector in Sweden are working with today, and then I will show a film how HSB work together with universities and partners to develop the future of living and the future of apartments. Digitalization is relevant in many parts of our business. And we build houses, we start local cooperatives, we help the local cooperatives to manage the house, and we give service to the cooperatives and to the members. And in all these processes, digitalization is important. First, in the planning process and the permits to start building a new house, now the Swedish government work to have a total digitalized process. In the second, in the construction, of course, we use 3D today, but I think we can do even more in the new production, but also in the maintenance, of course, in the housing. In the third, we can see more and more smart digital solutions for the residents. It could be locks, alarms, saving energy, postal service, deliveries of goods, carpools. Yeah, you can see new tools every month, every year that we can use, the resident can use. For the fourth, the digital solutions are important for us when we help the local cooperatives with the maintenance for the house. And fifth, and that is important, really important for us, we help about 4,000 local cooperatives with the administration. And I think only in one or maybe a few years, we have robots in our community, in our system, in a computer system. So the administration for all local cooperatives will go total automatically. We don't need any person to work with that any longer. And last but not least, of course, the digital solutions are important for communication between members in the housing cooperatives and also to provide them services. Of course, we are not there today. We are not there, not in Sweden, not in HSB, but the development in this sector is very quick now. We have started in HSB for 3-4 years ago, a new business sector, a new company, only to work with this for HSB and for our 4,000 local cooperatives. Now then, I think we shall look at a film. Is that possible? We take the film, the video. Welcome to HSB Living Lab in Gothenburg in Sweden.
Välkommen till resan mot framtidens hållbara boende. Och välkommen till HSB Living Lab. Detta unika laboratorium är ett living lab, eftersom här bor och lever människor i en miljö uppbyggd för avancerad forskning och utveckling. En världsunik forskning som ska hjälpa oss att utveckla framtidens hållbara boende. Huset byggdes i moduler där alla delar och sektioner är utbytbara. Allt för att göra byggnaden så tillgänglig för forskning som möjligt. Här kan vi enkelt lyfta bort hela väggar. Byta ut installationer och teknik för att ersätta med nya material och lösningar som vi vill testa. I huset finns inte mindre än 2000 sensorer som mäter allt från luftfuktighet och temperatur till vattenförbrukning och rörelsemönster bland de boende. Att forska i HSB Living Lab är att forska i ett verkligt system. Här får du en unik möjlighet att snabbt kliva in och forska i en konkret levande miljö. Förutom att det faktiskt är ett hem för drygt 30 personer är det också en fullt fungerande fastighet i alla aspekter. Med fastighetsskötare, förvaltare, lokalvårdare, fjärrvärmeleverantörer och brevbärare. Alla är de en påtaglig del i vår forskningsarena.
Det här är HSBs största satsning på forskning och utveckling just nu. När vi summerar det här efter 10 år så ska det vara det mest betydelsefulla samverkansprojektet för boendebranschens utveckling. Alla dessa nya innovationer och tekniska lösningar, de ska landa i våra framtida och befintliga bostäder.
Här bor 30 personer som lever sina liv som du och jag. Skillnaden är att här mäter vi allt. När du är vaken, när du sover. Hur du tvättar och hur länge du kokar in potatis. Hur många gånger en kylskåpsdörr öppnas och hur mycket vatten som går åt när du duschar.
Jag vill bo i ett labb för att jag vill påverka världen, jag vill göra framtiden bättre. Och jag tror att man gör det med hjälp av data och inte genom gissningar när man ska fatta beslut. Jag tycker det är speciellt att bo här därför att jag har folk att umgås med. Jag har ändå min kub som jag kan stänga om mig och den stora ytan här där jag kan dela med mig och laga mat och annat. Jag har bott här i 1,5 år och det fungerar riktigt bra faktiskt.
Med HSB Living Lab har vi här på Chalmers skapat en helt unik forskningsinfrastruktur som är av högt värde för både oss och vårt eget arbete, men som också har väckt mycket internationell uppmärksamhet.
Utvecklingstakten i samhället har aldrig gått snabbare. Vi är övertygade om att framtiden, den möter vi bäst tillsammans. Därför är HSB Living Lab ett samverkansprojekt mellan 12 långsiktiga partners. Men vi välkomnar även andra samarbeten och därför har vi byggt vårt labb som en öppen arena. Alla med en idé kring framtidens hållbara boende är välkomna att forska och utveckla tillsammans med oss.
För oss på Chalmers är HSB Living Lab en riskfri forsknings- och innovationsarena där våra forskare kan testa nya lösningar i den här verklighetsnära miljön. För oss är allt resultat, det som funkar eller det som inte funkar och behöver förbättras.
I HSB Living Lab pågår forskning och utveckling dygnet runt kring material, teknik, digitalisering och beteenden. Vi testar att dela gemensamma ytor för att se hur vi kan bo smartare i framtidens städer. Vi testar nya sätt att göra rent våra kläder. Vi provar ständigt nya tekniker och material för att göra huset mer energismart och resurseffektivt. Vi har till och med provat hönsgård för att se om vi kan minska matsvinnet och samtidigt få ägg. Ingenting är omöjligt i HSB Living Lab.
Innovation och samverkan mellan många olika aktörer är nyckelfaktorer för att vi ska åstadkomma en lösning kring många av de stora samhällsutmaningar som vi står inför. Exempelvis har vi urbaniseringstrend, vi har klimatutveckling och för att lösa de här stora utmaningarna så behöver vi kompetenser från många olika discipliner. Där är samverkan en nyckelroll.
Hur ska vi bygga våra hem i framtiden? Och hur ska vi leva och bo i en verklighet präglad av klimatförändring och miljöhänsyn? I HSB Living Lab finns vi som söker svaren på den frågan. Följ med oss på resan mot framtidens hållbara boende.
And today we have about 50 research projects together with universities from Sweden, but also from other countries in Europe. But we are open for more projects, so welcome to HSB Living Lab in Gothenburg.
Okay, thank you very much, Anders. Thank you. So let's come and rejoin us. Take your seat, please. And again, just as you were showing us that film, some keywords which have cropped up, this notion of collaboration, the question Miimu asked at the beginning about testing. How do we know? How do we measure? What do we mean by better? And good you had a range of different voices, so someone living in this space talking about the benefits. So again, you know, these are all really important in terms of our assessment of these new opportunities. And also we'll talk a bit later about you know, materials, methodology, tools, techniques. So all of this is also part of the conversation. I'd like to bring in our final speaker. So Kalle Virkus from Tartu, from the Regional Energy Agency. And I guess you may pick up, Kalle, on some of the points which Niki was talking about earlier on, this notion of zero and where energy consumption, distribution, where that fits into this conversation. Thanks for joining us. Nice to see you.
Hello, and greetings from Estonian culture capital, Tartu. I'm talking about our ongoing project, which is called SmartEnCity, but we used to call it Khrushchevka to Smartovka. Well, I'll tell you about the name later. As I'm a civil engineer, so you will see some numbers in my presentation also. The project SmartEnCity, which stands for Smart Energy City, is a part of a Horizon 2020 under the initiative Smart Cities and Communities, and it's a lighthouse type project. There are 3 lighthouses in this project, Vitoria-Gasteiz in Spain, Sonderborg in Denmark, and Tartu. And each of the cities is concentrating to a bit different problems than the others. And there are also 2 follower cities, Lecce of Italy and Asenograd in Bulgaria. So the vision of the SmartEnCity project is to create smart zero carbon cities that are more sustainable and inclusive, improve citizens' quality of life, create jobs and wealth, and offer equal growth opportunities. It's a very nice vision, what I tell you. These activities include retrofitting of buildings and integrating infrastructure, developing sustainable mobility and the intelligent use of information and communication technologies. Well, the most visible part of this project in Tartu is certainly retrofitting the buildings. And the building type that we are retrofitting is called Khrushchevka, hence the name. So what is a Khrushchevka? It's a dominant type of apartment house, multi-apartment house in Soviet Union. It was designed in 1959 and it was erected all over Soviet Union from 1950s, from late 1950s to early 1990s. It usually has 2-room apartments, flats, and has a very tiny kitchen, about 4 square meters, Initially, they were built of sand lime bricks, but later they were built of reinforced concrete blocks. And what is really cool about it, one size fits all. They were built from Pacific to Baltic and from White Sea to Black Sea. So we're retrofitting these houses has a very large potential of dissemination and replication. In this our project, there are 22 houses with about 39,000 square meters of living area participating. Their houses are of very poor thermal characteristics. Their energy consumption is 230 kilowatt hours per square meter in year, or even more. It's total imported net energy. We tried to, no, we don't try. We're going to reduce it to 90, which is Estonian standard for near zero energy building. The windows of all the houses will be changed. The domestic hot water will be coming from district heating grid instead of gas or electric boilers. And in all houses, heat recovery demand-based ventilation is installed. This particular feature is the most challenging because in the beginning it was hard to find any room for this kind of systems. And also every house will be equipped with solar panels, power station, 20 to 30 kilowatts of capacity. And as to the IT side, there will be smart monitoring and control of indoor climate, and they will be equipped with open platform IT systems that lets third parties to build their services in the system. So here is one Khrushchevka turned to Smartovka. It's an artistic view of all the features that this house will have after retrofitting. The PV panels, added insulation, and you can also see the other sides of the SmartEnCity projects, namely the electric mobility and enhanced infrastructure. What you don't see here is the soft side of this project, which is engagement of local community. And this is, well, how do you engage people in this kind of project? How do you get the people to talk with each other and to the government of the city? So you have to find a talking point. And the best talking point, of course, is retrofitting of their own homes. So, and we have organized a lot of meetings with local people, and they are very actively participating in there, and they don't only talk with us, they talk with themselves also. And it seems to be a good start to build on. Well, and the smart part of this project, what we have in these houses are smart thermostats. As I told, demand-based ventilation, and demand is controlled by CO2 concentration in indoor air. All the smart meters, water, heat, and electricity, internet connection in every room, in every apartment, and some more fancy features. Doorbell, smoke detector, guard systems. And the additional possibilities, as I told, there are third-party applications. The city plans to use the IT system for public announcements, and the houses are welcome to build their own in-house activities on the system also. So when in process of engaging the people, I was asked a lot of questions about starting really from what is that smart thing? What is it so that makes this houses smart? And one of the nicest questions was that if we start now with 22 buildings, make them smart buildings, will the city will be smart if all the buildings will be smart? So I thought that to ask the reverse question, is it possible to have a smart city with all houses being dumb? And what I came to was that really smart buildings and smart city don't have a connection with each other, or only slight, because as Mr. Greenfield already previously told, there is the smart is a buzzword and doesn't really have a meaning by itself. So, but we have to mark the features somehow, and we have some perception about what smart should be. So, what I think the best definition of smartness in the city is that the city is extensively using ITC technologies by smart governance, and both of them are accepted and used by smart citizens. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Kalle. I loved your thing about smart cities with dumb buildings. That's a nice note to finish on. Let's maybe just ask our final question for the audience, because we're kind of running out of time a wee bit here as we draw our business to a close at the end of this morning session. So let's just pop our final question on the screen, and we'll ask you for your thoughts. It connects to Kalle's point about smart cities. How smart are our cities? And leaving aside how we define smart cities, in your own definition, how smart is the place where you come from at the moment? Okay. And just while we're looking at that, so we've kind of slightly run out of time for our panel conversation, but let me make a couple of suggestions just before we wrap up. So on the balance of what you were saying, 3% saying a lot. The big chunk of you, was almost 3/4 of you, saying not that much. So this is definitely work in progress. Our plan A was to have a conversation. We've kind of run out of time a little bit, but the good news is that we have 90 minutes. We have until 2 o'clock for lunch. So there's an opportunity to keep this conversation going in a civilized way over some food. We also have a chance to see a film, which is showing in the foyer. Sorry, downstairs. And it's about the whole thing about drones and about the modernization of how our sort of city pathways are going to change with some of the new technologies coming in. Feel free, as I said, to have a walk around, get some fresh air, go and visit some of the amazing space that we were in just now. And before we wrap up, can you just join me and say a big thank you to our panelists for such a stimulating conversation, and we look forward to keeping that going. So we're back in here 2 o'clock. Okay, thanks very much, everybody. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Thanks, Anders. That's great. Thank you.
1:30, the movie is here.
Oh, sorry, 1:30, the movie is actually in here. 1:30, the movie's in here.
During this lunch break, it's possible to take pictures behind the Estonian 100 wall.
Okay.
For everybody. Tell.
Oh, you want everyone? You want everyone? What time?
Everybody is invited.